Hello, Merry Meet. So today I'm going to review a book that I consider one of the most important books to read as a modern pagan. And this book is Wicca, The Old Religion in the New Millennium by Vivianne Crowley. Now, Vivianne Crowley, she is a Guardian Wiccan. I don't remember if she was initiated by Gardner himself or if she's one link removed, but she's pretty close to the source when it comes to the Guardian Wiccan tradition. So, and that's one of the things that makes this book so important because she was initiated uh, by either Gardner or one of his direct students. So she's right at the core of things, while at the same time she expands the system based on her own experience as with psychology. And the result is very, very interesting. First of all, this is one of the few systems that I personally know of that uses the mental model of magic. Vivianne Crowley has a very unique way of looking at magic, where she sees it as uh, very much tied to the psyche. That very much that when we cast a spell, what we do is that we program our subconscious, and that subconscious then performs the magic. And it's a very, very interesting system. Another thing that's very, very interesting about this book is that this woman, who was initiated by either Gardner or one of his students, so she's definitely as pure Gerardian as it's possible to get. She acknowledges other groups and people who are self-initiated as Wiccan. And I remember I used to have a lot of debate with a guy named Dalua. And he's a Norwegian pagan, or he was Norwegian pagan, so I'm not going to say too much negative about him because I feel that those that has gone to the Summerland and are with the goddess and the god and can't defend themselves, speaking bad about them is just hacky. But I will say that one of the debates I often had with him was whether or not it was possible to self-initiate. And he said, no, to be a Wiccan, you could be a witch and do witchcraft, but if you were going to be a Wiccan, you had to be initiated by a Gerardian or a Alexandrian coven. And he was initiated by Vivianne Crowley, and she says the exact opposite in this book. She acknowledges other Wiccan paths such as Dianic, Starhawk, and so on, and she acknowledges that people are Wiccan if they follow the Wiccan beliefs, though of course they are not Guardian or Alexandrian unless they are initiated into those traditions. So yeah, whenever Wiccans come with all the "oh, but you can't be Wiccan unless you are initiated into these groups," I usually bring up this book. Anyway, on to the review. What this describes is basically Guardian Wicca from an initiate's point of view. I think of course, it will not remove the need to read Gareth Gardner's books, but it gives a very interesting point of view from someone who is very, very close to Gardner. I mean, if you have somebody who is a Wiccan who was initiated many decades after Gardner's death, and who might be initiated a Guardian Wiccan, but that it has been many, many initiatory generations since Gardner to them, they will have a less direct source of knowledge than somebody who was initiated by Gardner or one of his students, as Vivianne Crowley is, and therefore her perspective is very interesting. Now, the book it gets a little bit dry. Let's just say that there are very, 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 very little fluff in this book, and it is very scholarly. Vivianne Crowley usually writes books on psychology, and she uses the same kind of language here, so that it can be a somewhat dry read, but information here is top notch. So let's see what this book contains, shall we? It contains the following: Wicca Today, The Roots of Wicca, Witchcraft Revisited, The Circle Being, Making Magic, The First Initiation, Opening the Door, The Journey Onwards, The Goddess, Wicca and the Feminine, The God, Wicca and the Masculine, Invoking the Gods, The Second Initiation, Quest Perilous, The Steep Path, The Third Initiation, A Great Gateway to the Self, Afterwards, Wiccan resources where to find information, books and contacts, bibliography and an index. So yeah, this will tell you how to practice her system, sort of. Now, Guardian Wicca is a mystery edition, and of course there are a lot of secrets within that group, and Crowley here has not told of those secrets, so that you get some of the same effect that you get with old grimoires, for example. That many people have a problem getting old grimoires to work for them because a lot of information is lacking. The information that the author assumes somebody reading the book already have, because they assume that they have learned that from a mentor. And this book has somewhat lacking because it lacks the secrets that she can't divulge. But at the same time, there's a lot of good information here, and you can definitely use this book and become a fairly effective Wiccan. Now, Vivianne Crowley's focus on psychology might put some people off, because she has a very different viewpoint on magic and religion than many of us. Like I said, her system is more the psychological model of magic, while Wicca generally are the spiritual / energy model. She sort of sees it as sees magic as a complex psychological exercise. That the mystical part of it is ways to communicate with our subconscious, which I find is very interesting. And while I don't necessarily share her views, I more often work with the spiritual and the energy model. It is still a very interesting way to look at it, and it's definitely a book that will teach you a lot about the psychological model. And the ritual presented in here are Iranian witchcraft, so the book is an invaluable resource for learning Iranian style Wicca. And I think that this book, along with Gardner's work and so on, are pretty vital if you're going to be a Wiccan, because it explains basically Gardner's views. And this book is very, very useful because it explains those views from somebody very close to the source, but who has a voice of her own. So I would really, really recommend it. And if you don't want to focus directly on Wicca, like for example, I am not Wiccan, I call myself Wiccanish. My spiritual life is based on Wicca to a large extent, but I am not Wiccan, and I still have a lot of use for this. There's some beautiful rituals in here. Everything is very well explained, and the only thing negative I could say about the book is that it gets dry at times. So it's not a book that sort of everything just flows off the pages and into your brain. It feels like reading a textbook. But that isn't necessarily bad in and of itself, because it very much is a textbook on witchcraft. It is written to give knowledge, not to entertain. So I would say this is a very, very, very good book, and I count it among the essentials. For me, Gardner's books, the books by Scott Cunningham, Raymond Buckland, Margaret Murray, this book here by Vivianne Crowley. All these are books that I would consider must-reads for a well-read pagan. So yeah, I definitely recommend this book. I would give it 9 out of 10. The only reason why it doesn't get that 10 is that it is 5. So yeah, this book you'll find in many editions. This one is one of the older edition, but even this one is a revised one. I've seen it with many different covers. And it shouldn't be difficult to find at all. So this particular edition has 257 pages, but some editions have new forwards, some editions, so but around that page count. But yeah, it is a great book and definitely a must read if you're interested in either witchcraft, Gerardian Wicca, or the mental model of magic. If any of these 3 are interesting to you, then you want this book. I can't stress that enough. You want this book. It's great. It's awesome. So yeah, I hope you have enjoyed this review. Blessed be.